All units, please respond. We got a 7467. Two idiots spilling the tea about their neighbors.
Welcome to episode 138.
The Bodyguard Tells All Part 2.
There goes the neighborhood. Hey, do-gooder bougie crew and selfish CRN trolls. Shout out to our listeners in Canada and Washington State.
Got a question, comment, or a buck-wild neighbor story? Hit us up on 239-300-7276.
And shout out to our sponsor, Podcast Junkie Studio, right here in Boca Raton, Florida. If you'd like to sponsor our show, email us at info@crazyrichneighbors.com to inquire about opportunities.
And you guys, check out our mugs and our full videos.
And our jugs.
And our jugs and jowls. On YouTube, y'all. Okay, please hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Give us a good comment. Come on, help your girls out.
We are getting more subscribers on YouTube, so that is
Yes,
exciting.
yay.
Welcome to our
Organic
YouTube
baby.
viewers. Yes. And running the board is our trusty Benny Ben.
Hey.
Oh,
Hey, there we go. Hey, what's up, guys? How we doing?
Doing good. It's Friday. Freaky Friday, honey.
It is Friday, and I'm feeling good. I hope you're feeling good. You guys look great.
Well,
Thank
you
you,
don't have to
darling.
feel good
So-
to look good, baby.
That is true. You are right. You are right.
You're looking good yourself.
Yes, it's Trey Sophisticato.
Yeah.
Thank you,
darling,
Just a little,
yes.
white shirt action.
You really have elevated your looks.
I swear.
Hey.
We approve.
We got to do it for our bougie crew.
That's it,
You know?
baby.
Yes.
Cheers
That's
to that.
it. Cheers to the bougie
Cheers,
crew.
darling.
Yes, honey.
Yes. So we have David back in the house, okay, for part 2. David Wilcox, the former bodyguard of Pat Robertson, the controversial televangelist and presidential candidate, amongst other things. Hey, David, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back. I guess I didn't pollute my first visit.
No.
No, we were intrigued. We hung on your every word.
Yes.
And you alluded to the fact that you still had a lot more stories to tell. So here is your forum. The mic is yours.
About 400 pages worth, actually. But
So just to
Well-
kick things off, like tell our bougie crew about Pat Robertson's lifestyle. You know, maybe like his home or any expensive hobbies or things like that.
well, I mentioned in the first visit with you that Pat is kind of pseudo royalty in Virginia. He was the son of a sitting senator for a number of decades, and he's actually related by blood to two presidents, William Henry Harrison and Benjamin Harrison. And his wife is related by, I believe, marriage or blood to Winston Churchill.
Oh, wow.
So they got a pretty good bloodline going on, but Pat had a pretty good deal going at CBN. The CBN complex is several hundred acres of really prime real estate in Virginia Beach, right off of Interstate 64, and it's an all-encompassing campus. It has the ministry headquarters, it has Regent University and a bunch of support buildings and such. And one of the buildings there is a house, a 3-story Georgia colonial house that is called the Chancellery, and it's where the chancellor of the university stays. And that, of course, was Pat Robertson. He was the chancellor of the university. He's the head of the ministry. He's the 700 Club host. He's the jack of all trades. So he had a very nice house. It was an expansive piece of property. And one of the interesting things was when I first got there, my assignment before I really got into the executive protection end of it was I was doing grounds security. And I would have to walk the grounds outside of Pat's house for midnight to 8 during the wintertime.
Oh,
And one of the buildings out there is a beautiful, beautiful set of stables for horses. It's called Tiga Farms. It's named after the initials of his 4 kids, Tim, Elizabeth, Gordon, and Ann. And one of the points that I would have to check every night, I have to go out there and make sure all these horses were in good shape. They were warm enough, fed. It was probably nicer digs than I had when I was living at student housing. And Pat was into a form of horse riding called dressage. and that's where you dress up like an English lord and
Oh
you
Lord.
prance around. You got the pants, that
And
are
we thought
flared
we
out
were
at the knee.
eccentric.
Bougie.
Yeah, and so he would go out and ride every once in a while, and
Dressed up.
yeah,
Oh my God.
yeah, and all by himself. And one of his favorite horses was a horse called Kedar, Kedar. It's a beautiful white stallion. It was his pride and joy. My understanding was it cost several $100,000.
Wow.
And Kedar was kind of a focal point of a couple episodes. Back in September of '85, there was a hurricane. I believe it was Hurricane Gloria was veering in on the CBN complex, and Pat was made aware of that, and he was on the air, the 700 Club. And when they came back from a commercial break, he leaned into the camera and said, "Ladies and gentlemen, I've just been advised we've got a major hurricane bearing down on Virginia Beach, Virginia, and we need to pray it away because it'll be devastating if it hits CBN. So what I want you all to do is reach out and put your hands on your television sets." And don't know if that's so biblical, but put your hands on your TV sets. And he led them in a prayer, and the exact prayer is in my book. And he prayed, spare us from this hurricane, divert it away, et cetera, et cetera.
Rain, rain, go away.
Come back another day.
That's what the public saw. What the people in security also were aware of is we got a phone call from the studio telling the security staff to get all of the horses out of Pat's stable and transport them at least 3 or 4 hours away inland, just in case the prayer didn't work and the hurricane hit us. He wanted
What a true believer.
Oh my gosh.
So anyway, that we did as we were advised. Here's the weird part: was the hurricane actually did veer away. It kind of ping ponged its way up the coast, ended up in the New Jersey, Delaware area, came ashore, and if you Google Hurricane Gloria, you'll find it was pretty devastating. A lot of people died
Oh, wow.
Oh
as a
damn.
result. Well, the next day after Pat had prayed away the hurricane, he was in his dressing room with a couple of the members of the staff, and they brought it up to him and said, "Hey, Pat, did you see that the hurricane, it obviously missed CBN, but it went up the coast and killed a lot of people and did a lot of devastation, millions of dollars in damage?" And his response was, "Well, I guess they just didn't pray hard enough."
Woo.
Oh, he's a savage.
So, getting back to Kedar, if I can go back one more story on Kedar, Pat was out riding one day and he got thrown right over, ass over tea kettle, over the head of Kedar. Kedar just decided, "I'm stopping."
Like, I'm
and
sick of this mofo.
yeah. So anyway, Pat was a former Golden Gloves boxer in the Marine Corps.
Oh, wow.
He had hands that were about the size of your average meatloaf.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
And he took great exception to being dumped on his ass. So he got and did what any logical, rational person would do. He slugged his horse in the head.
Oh, no.
In the head?
Yeah, but I don't know if
That
you've ever seen
horse
the
should have
skull of
bucked
a
Kicked
horse.
him.
him,
Bucked him in his
exactly.
teeth.
Yep.
I don't know if you've ever seen a horse's skull, but they're, massively thick, and it really didn't affect it. But Pat ended up rupturing a knuckle.
Good.
And it got infected, and the next day he came in, couldn't
Good.
hold his microphone, and we had to go to the doctor.
Did he
have it
pray
lanced
the
and stuff.
infection away too?
Yeah.
Oh
but
my
anyway,
gosh. I
That's
cannot
kind
believe
of
he hit
his-
his horse.
that's kind of his
Temperament, huh?
frame of reference.
Yeah.
He was a very impatient person. He wanted everything now and perfect. He didn't want to pay a lot for it.
Typical.
We flew one time. Most of the time we would fly on a company plane. It was about the size of a 727. But for some reason or another, he had to fly commercial, and
Uh-oh.
it took he and his wife to drop him off at the Norfolk airport. And of course, Mrs. Robertson ran typically very, very late. She was like a thorn in his side as far as keeping schedules. And we were probably 45 minutes late to the airport. We pulled up to the loading zone. Now here I am. I'm just a stupid bodyguard. I'm carrying a 9mm handgun and wearing a business suit. he pulls up, we pull up, and he says, David, he says, run up ahead and tell the pilot to hold the plane for me.
Oh,
What?
okay.
On a commercial flight?
Because that happens.
Yeah. So I said, well, first of all, if the guy's a Democrat, he's going to back away from the gate. We'll let him get
Toodaloo.
in.
Yep.
I said, secondly, Pat, I said, I'm carrying a gun. I can't run through security.
Jesus.
They're going to taser me or shoot me.
Right.
Finally, Mrs. Robertson came to, her senses and said, Pat, you can't ask him to do that. So
Oh my
anyway,
God.
that's just the kind of mindset he had. He was always wanted
He ruled the world.
things perfect. We would spend sometimes 18 hours a day on our feet
Oof.
with him doing maybe a dozen to 15 events in a given day. And when we got done and back to the hotel, maybe around midnight, we would walk him to his room and get him inside his suite. And if we got these words, well, that went well, we had hit a home run.
Okay.
Oh,
No accolades. It wasn't, hey guys,
Never thank you.
wow.
appreciate what you did for me.
Why do people
Wow.
lead like that?
Oh,
you
it's
know?
also the
Anyway.
really godly ones too.
I know. I'm so shocked.
Such a
Yeah,
stinker.
I don't know. I guess they start believing their own press after a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what's the state of CBN right now?
I really don't know, but I'll tell you what I kind of forecast, and then I did forecast this over the last several years, and I actually researched part of it for my book. Ministries that are built upon a personality, like the Jim and Tammy Bakers, Pat Robertsons, the Kenneth Copelands, those kind of people. When the personality is the focal point, once they pass, typically the ministries collapse like a black hole. Now, I'm not wishing any ill will to anybody at CBN. They have some fine, wonderful people working there, but now
Except
that
for Jesus,
Pat's
he did
gone-
great.
Okay. Killing
Now
it.
that Pat's gone, I really think that the money's going to dry up. I spoke about that last time I was on the show. And when he ran for president and was out of the loop as far as the ministry was concerned, donations dropped off about 45%, and about 600 people lost their jobs as a result of it.
Yeah.
So you can extrapolate from that now that Pat Robertson's at the pearly gates, people are probably not going to respond very well to the fundraising appeals. And it's nothing against Gordon. His youngest son is driving the bus now, but and Gordon's very savvy. I don't really predict a live 700 Club broadcast to linger very much longer, like it did for 30 some years.
They'd have to find a new star.
Right.
We're
free.
I really think it's going to be a video
Hello.
on demand.
Oh,
Probably
okay.
video on demand, hour-long show, pre-packaged
Yeah.
on the internet, and people can download it at their leisure. But
Yeah, the way people consume media has changed too. So
Correct.
they have to evolve,
Right.
just like
Sure.
everybody else.
Yeah, well, everyone's busy now. People don't have from 10 to 11 Eastern time to sit on their couch and watch cable TV. They're
Right.
doing other things like earning a living. So
Did Pat have any rivalries with the other televangelists?
not that I was aware of. I mean, he never he. Let me.
But they
couch
must have
this
had a
bit.
competitor. Like,
Well, they're fighting over money, right? They're fighting over people
Well-
watching their shows.
Pat was kind of an amazing person in that a lot of people knew him. He was relatively famous. He was very controversial, and that made him famous. But as far as I could tell, he didn't. I felt sorry for him because I couldn't tell you who his best friend was.
Wow.
And I always wondered what would happen if he got in a crisis where he really didn't know what to do and he needed to reach out to somebody. I had no idea who the hell he'd call.
Hmm.
And he knew a lot of people. I mean, he was a mover and a shaker. He knew a lot of people in the Republican Party. He knew a lot of people in the business world. He'd written at least, a couple dozen books. So, I mean, he's connected, but I don't know of any real rivalry. I mean, Jim and Tammy Baker, he used to laugh because Jim and Tammy actually got their start at CBN doing a puppet ministry on the 700 Club broadcast. And when they started getting into all their trouble, Pat's response was, they're going to send Jim Baker to prison for basically overbooking a hotel.
Ooh.
So that was kind of his outlook on things. It's like he felt like he was kind of at the top of the food chain. He had run for president, didn't win, but he ran for president. And I think he looked at everybody else kind of as a substandard
Okay.
personality.
Large and in charge. So he was unbothered by the non-existent competition.
Yeah, well, he was the king of his kingdom. I mean,
He's like the Joel, I guess, like what Joel Osteen is right now, right?
Right. He was a media phenomenon. I think the 700 Club broadcast was translated into dozens and dozens of languages. It broadcast internationally. I mean, he'd go to Africa, Asia, and just be recognized by tons of people. So he was kind of the Christian rock star of his era. But
Did people donate from those nations?
I'm not really privy to what the cash flows were like, but I did. There was a room at CBN where a lot of the back in our day, people paid by check, and there were rooms there where women sat at illuminated tables and opened up envelopes and took the checks out and stacked them, and then they were processed and everything. So, I was never really privy to where they were all coming from, but I know that they had a very, very strong mail outreach, and then their mailing list had probably about 3.5 million names.
Wow.
So, do the math. If you can get 5%,
Yeah.
response out of that, that's pretty good money. It was $20 a month to sponsor the 700 Club.
Oh, wow.
Be a 700 Club member.
That's a lot of money back in the day.
That is.
Yeah. And I believed in what we were doing. I got to the point where I was giving $2,500 a year.
Wow.
Wow.
And then I started watching the wheels come off after Pat got back from politics, and the whole focus kind of veered off into Never Never Land.
Did he get in trouble? Did he hook up with those African dictators after the presidential run, or was that before?
Yeah, after the presidential run, he got originally solicited by Mobutu Sese Seko, who was the dictator president of Zaire, asked to come over there. We went over there for about 10 days, and it was the most frightened I think I'd ever been. About 50% of the people over there were HIV positive. Their economy was in ruins.
Wow, you're brave.
You'd have to take a stack of their money about yay big down to the sundry store to buy a newspaper.
Oh,
wow.
It was crazy.
What were your accommodations like?
Pardon me?
What were your accommodations like during that time?
That's interesting because we stayed at the God, I'm trying to remember the name. It was one of the 5-star hotels.
Was it really?
And well, here's the interesting thing that happened there was we had a group of about 9 or 10 people, I guess, with us, and we were supposed to meet with Mobutu, and he kept stalling and stalling and stalling. We just waited around, and one day one of the people in our party had to leave, and he went to check out, and the desk clerk wasn't going to let him leave. So I got a frantic call from him, and he says, "You need to come down here to the desk and help us because they're not going to let Dan Olson leave the hotel. They say we owe him money."
What? A shakedown?
So we went down there and we talked to the manager.
Gotta try that.
I know, right?
And Michael Little, who's just an amazing, wonderful man. I love Michael to death. He kind of was our intercessor, and he told the general manager, he says, "Sir," he says, "we are guests of the president of your country. And President Mobutu is supposed to be picking up our tab." He looked him right in the eye and he said, "You don't understand." He says, "Mobutu's credit is no good at this hotel."
Oh my goodness.
So a couple of phone calls were made, and within a half an hour, 2 huge thugs in dark suits showed up.
Oh, God.
They grabbed the hotel manager by the arm, took him into a back room, and we never saw him again.
Oh.
What?
Now,
I hope he's not 6 feet under.
Well, fast forward 24 hours from that conflict, we were on board Mobutu's private yacht, which was a converted Coast Guard cutter boat ship.
Does
He's
not
like, we
sound
don't need the Coast Guard. I need a yacht.
Well, this guy needed protection. He had military SEALs
Gosh.
tracking him in Zodiacs with 50 caliber machine guns in case anybody tried to kill him.
I mean, this
guy
does not sound like fun.
This is
like to be on this type
cray-cray.
of pleasure craft.
Anyway.
Like,
We're waiting for Mobutu to come out to greet us and have lunch with him. And he comes out and he's wearing this leopard skin fez. and
Yes,
these
child.
Black horn rimmed glasses. And he comes up to Pat and he shakes his hand and he says, I'd like to apologize for the misunderstanding that took place at the hotel yesterday. And Pat says, well, Mr. President, he says, we are Christians and we're people of forgiveness and mercy. And Mobutu looks him right in the eye and he says, these are good things, but we just pulled his ear a little bit.
oh my
And
God.
he got this eerie looking grin on his face. And
What
Mobutu
does-
had killed thousands of his
Oh
own
my
people
God.
already.
What a
A
barbarian.
few minutes later, Pat and I were out on the bow of the ship getting some fresh
I
air.
would jump overboard. I'd rather just
And I
like.
said-
Yes, honey. I'll take my chances with the sharks.
I told him, I said, when we get back to CBN, I said, don't be surprised if there's a FedEx box waiting for you and it's got a couple of ears in it.
Oh my gosh.
And he said, I wouldn't be surprised.
Ooh.
He says, it was a little bit frightening.
Oh
I said, yeah.
no.
I said, we never saw that. We never saw that manager again.
And you know, they
So-
probably racked up bills at that hotel and never paid, right?
Yeah.
Imagine the strain on that
Here's-
business owner.
Here's the most phenomenal thing. If you fast forward from
That's
that
scary.
meeting, that's where Pat first got diamond fever.
Right, I remember that.
Okay? So now you fast forward a couple years or even a few months, and he's already lobbying to Mobutu to set up diamond mining operations under his own private company.
Right.
Pat's private company.
Who would go into business with this guy? He's a killer psycho.
Obviously, Pat.
Well, that's my point. is
He's
Pat-
just so shady.
Pat's
He's
Achilles
evil.
heel-
God, I
Pat's
guess.
Achilles heel was he had no discernment with people.
Wow.
He was a money hungry, like he was just money
Power,
hungry.
greedy. Yeah.
He put
Yeah.
that up above the Lord. Did he ever take care of the poor, or did he take care of the community?
Well,
Did
that's
he
the- see,
help
that's the
anybody?
that's the dichotomy is when I was there, he was doing wonderful things. He had Operation Blessing. He would
And they
the
really
Ministry
did.
of Finance. They would go down to hurricane ravaged areas or earthquake areas or whatever, and set up kitchens and feed the homeless people and did really wonderful things.
But did he do anything for his community though? It's all good
yeah.
and well to
Well-
fly outside of the country and be like treated like a, royalty outside of America, but like what did he do for the poor in his own community?
The only thing that I can speak honestly and truthfully about was every Christmas they would rent out. There's a venue down here called the Scope. It's a big auditorium type venue, and they would have an Operation Blessing Christmas dinner. And even then, it kind of wasn't really geared
Yeah,
towards
you
the
see, he
homeless.
did it for the publicity
Mhm.
to go
went to a lot
abroad
of
and to
the
swoop in and make
Mhm.
themselves look powerful and strong while they ignored the poor and
The unglamorous.
yeah, exactly.
And it was kind of like
Terrible
putting
guy.
a Band-Aid on an artery. It felt good, made everybody feel good for the night, and then it was like back to business.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Back to African diamonds.
Mm-hmm. Was that the most in danger you felt that Pat could have ever been when you were in Zimbabwe, or was there another situation where there was even more of a perilous?
Actually, the most danger we were in was in San Francisco.
What?
Yeah.
That's before people
We,
start
I
shitting on the
know,
sidewalks.
or flipping those zombie junkies.
We were there for one of his side ventures was a multi-level marketing thing
Oh
called
God.
Benefits Plus, and he would go out and they'd rent a big hotel meeting room and invite the public in, and he would promote this Benefits Plus and tell Christians they could make $10,000 a month selling these discount cards, et cetera, et cetera.
Mm.
And we were in San Francisco at the Sir Francis Drake Hotel, and the meeting room was downstairs in a internal ballroom. And I had always told Pat when I first started being his primary protector was, if I ever come up to you in an event and grab your elbow, you were to look me right in the eye and do whatever the hell I tell you to do. Don't question it, just do it.
Wow.
And I said, do you understand me? He goes, yeah, brother, I understand. So anyway, we're in San Francisco. He gets up onto this platform and he's talking about Benefits Plus and this opportunity for people. And there was probably a couple hundred people there, but midway through the presentation, I see two guys walk in the back door. Now I'm standing right off the dais where he's speaking, and I see these two guys walk in, and they're dressed in like military fatigue jackets, jeans, combat boots, and they've got something white and kind of gauzy on their fingertips. Well, I'm not the sharpest knife in the drawer, but it seemed odd to me. So I had actually had my old brother-in-law, kind of as my backup. So I called Ralph on the radio, and I said, "Will you please go back and check out these guys?" Because they walked in together, but they sat on opposite sides of the aisle leading before the audience was sitting, which is very strange. And as Pat normally would do when he got done speaking at these things, he would step off and walk down and shake hands with people and stuff. Well, it turned out that these guys had Pat was very outspoken about homosexuality, and these guys had pre-sliced their fingertips
Oh,
so that they could take gauze coverings off and make their fingers bleed. And my
what?
suspicion was, when Pat would be walking down the aisle, they were either going to try and touch him with the blood,
Oh my
Oh,
God.
what?
so
Like AIDS, you think, to spread
yeah,
AIDS?
That's what I
well,
thought.
at the time that this happened, AIDS was
Oh
extremely
my,
prevalent.
That's
that is so
insane.
hateful. Oh,
Yeah, there were no
jeez.
HIV drugs to speak of, or
Oh
anything.
my
Pretty much the death
God.
sentence.
God, yeah, like when AIDS came out, like that was like you're gonna
'Cause
catch
you
it if
were
somebody
dead,
breathes on
dead
you,
quick.
you know?
Oh
You just
yeah,
didn't
you
know.
didn't touch people. Yeah.
So I went into sphincter lock, and I said, okay, we always
Sphincter
had
lock.
yeah,
Wow.
we always had a primary exit, a secondary exit, and a tertiary exit in any venue we were in. So I told Ralph, I said, he's not coming off the dais, and we're gonna go out the tertiary exit. And Pat got done, and applause was vigorous, and he gets ready to start down to the crowd, and I grabbed him by the elbow, and he spun his head around. I says, "Come with me now."
Good.
Wow.
And we went out this side door into a hallway. Well, the two guys, saw them at the very end. They ran out the back door where they'd come from, and it was at the
What?
other end of this hallway. So this is something out of a Hitchcock movie. I got to tell you, because this hotel was very ancient. The elevator had one of those sweeping needles that
Oh
had
my God, that
Oh,
is an old timey
wow. Like
thing.
these horror stories that you see.
so we're hightailing it down to the elevator to get him up to his room. And I look, and the elevator's at the 5th floor, which I think is the top floor at that point. And I gave him to Ralph, and I said, "Get him to the suite now." And I could hear footsteps plump, 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 coming down the hallway.
Oh my God.
That is
So
so
I'm looking at
maniacal.
this needle, and it just seemed to be going in complete.
Oh my God. Did you draw your gun?
Yes, I spun
Wow.
around. I took a couple steps towards where I heard the footsteps coming, and these two guys came around the corner, and we had this E.F. Hutton moment where we just stared at each other.
Great job. Did you draw the gun?
I pulled my gun out. Didn't point it at him, but I made it very clear I had one. And they looked at me, and in my mind, I felt at that point any exposure to HIV was pretty much an assault with a deadly weapon.
Yes.
And I would not hesitate if they tried
Yes.
to shoot him. Anyway, they spun around, took off. And in my old cop days, now I would have chased them and tried to take them into custody. But
Hell no.
executive protection, you care about your protectees.
Exactly.
So
Did you call the
I
police?
got back up to Pat's suite, and he was kept screaming, and he's like, What's going on? What's going on? What's going on?" I explained it to him, and he felt very thankful that we had handled it the way we did.
Good.
But that was probably the closest we came to really getting.
Great job. Did you
We
call
had
the
a mail-
police?
We had a mail bomb go off in the mailroom one day.
But did you call the police for those guys though to alert them? No.
No,
They probably
no,
wouldn't have been able to catch them anyways.
We were leaving the next day, and it was just we just want to be low profile and get the heck out of Dodge.
Wow. Good move.
That's insane.
But related to that, and I got to share this to you too. Talk about Pat's stance on homosexuality. We flew out commercial on that flight because it was a side business. It wasn't paid for by the ministry. So we flew on a commercial jet from Norfolk to San Francisco. And of course, Pat sat in first class, and I had my substantial ass back in coach.
Sorry.
Yeah. And
We hate Coach.
he waves
Yes,
me up
child.
real quick. He waves me up real quick. He says, keep an eye on this flight attendant guy. I think he's gay.
Oh,
Oh
no.
God, are you
And
serious?
I ordered, yeah, I swear, it's in the book.
Oh my
And
Lord.
I think
he
he's
said,
gay.
I ordered a ginger ale. Just make sure he's not putting anything in it before he gives it to me.
Oh Lord.
And I'm
have
like, come
mercy.
on, Pat.
That's
You're on a
crazy.
damn sealed plane. Everybody's been through security.
So
Come
what
on.
was he preaching? Like, if you are homosexual, you're going to hell?
He was not a real big fan, of he'd quote scripture all the time that it was an abomination and, all this stuff. But
Mm-hmm.
anyway, but yeah, he was a lightning rod, but he was so much against homosexuality, and there was a time when I got a phone call in my office. If any nuts supposedly called the switchboard, wanted to talk to Pat, they gave the call to me,
Nice.
and I got this call. Apparently, Pat had been on the 700 Club that morning talking about not living in sin. You should really
Oh.
live with somebody if you're married. Well, and if you're living in sin right now, you need to break off that relationship and get right with the Lord and all this stuff. So this guy calls me from a phone booth somewhere down in the South, and I knew it was a phone booth because every 3 minutes he had to stop and put
Oh my gosh.
in the payphone. Of course, our younger audience won't know what.
Payphone.
Yeah,
payphone is.
exactly.
And the guy was just madder than hell. He says, "You got to go tell Pat Robertson to tell my girlfriend Cindy Lou that he didn't mean what he was saying because she's getting ready to leave me."
Uh-oh.
Cindy
Yeah.
Lou.
Cindy had enough.
Yeah, and I told him, I said, "Well, I can't have Pat do that." Anyway, that's the kind of effect he had on people. Was
That's crazy.
Well, let's take a quick break, and then we'll come back with more with David Wilcox. Welcome back to Crazy Rich Neighbors. So, David, we're in the last home stretch of our show. Is there any burning stories you want to tell about either Pat or Ralph Reed?
Well, Ralph Reed's just another whole visit in and of himself. But I'd like to share something about Dee Dee, Pat's wife. She was a remarkable woman. I felt sorry for her. She loved Pat very much. She was probably his best sounding board. Whenever he made a speech and she was there, he would always ask her immediately, "How did I do?" And she was just brutally honest. And but it jumped up and bit me in the rear end one time because this is very early on. My job that day was to get Dee Dee to the airport to get on the private plane to go somewhere, and she was always running late. And I got her to the plane on time. She was on board, and Pat had decided to drive himself to the airport. Well, he was running really late, and on the way to the airport, Mrs. Robertson and I had seen a traffic cop writing tickets in this stretch to the airport lounge where the private planes take off. And she said, "Well, I hope Pat doesn't get caught. He's always speeding." And sure enough, Pat got stopped.
Uh-oh.
He was late, and he came driving up, and he got out of his car, and he goes, I was standing there, and he says, "Did you see that traffic cop back there? Did you know he was there?" And stupidly we said, "Yeah." And anyway, he got in the ticket, he got on the plane, and Dee Dee was relentless the whole trip, just teasing him about it. But the real Dee Dee story, if I got 2 or 3 more minutes,
Sure.
was we were in Nashville on a political trip, and Dee Dee was treated like a fifth wheel on the political trips. I felt so sorry for her. And the agenda for that evening was we were staying at, I think, the Grand Old Opry or Opryland Hotel, but the venue for the meetings was a few minutes away. And Pat was going to have what was called a grin and grip. That's where he goes in and meets with all these high rollers for his political campaign and schmoozes them, grins and grips their hand and asks them for money. And when that was going to be done, they were going to step next door to a little ballroom area and have a nice catered dinner, real fancy food and wine and dine these donors. Well, Dee Dee was still at the original hotel, supposedly getting ready. She wasn't going to be part of the grin and grip. She was going to come back and be part of the dinner. So I was with Jim Small, who was the head of security at the time. And he said, go back and get Dee Dee. She needs to be over here, bring her back, and we'll get her in for the dinner. So I drove back, thought easy assignment. I got along very well with Dee Dee, walked to their suite, knocked on the door, and expected her to be dressed to the nines and come out with me and get her over to the hotel. Well, she opens the door. She's got her hair in curlers. She's still wearing a bathrobe, no makeup. I said, Mrs. Robertson, I said, we always had to refer to Pat when we were out as Dr. Robertson.
Oh, brother.
Dr. Robertson would like for you to join him at the other hotel. And she said, David, you can go back and tell them that I won't be joining them tonight.
Oh,
She wanted to
And-
Netflix and chill, honey.
I just was like, oh man, I don't know what I'm going to do about this, but you don't argue with Dee Dee. So I said, yes, ma'am, I'll deliver the message. I drove back and I walked back to where Jim was. He says, where's Dee Dee? I said,
Well, doctor.
okay. Go call
She's
your
not
own damn
coming.
wife.
Yeah, right.
15 minutes later, Jim and I are sitting there just waiting for the meeting to get over. And here comes Dee Dee strolling in, looking fabulous. And we're like, are we in the Twilight
Okay.
Zone? What the hell's going on? She came over and goes, good evening, gentlemen. So we gave her our seat, and she just sat there and tore up a bag of M&Ms. And she said, would you like some? She just ate these candies. And then suddenly the meeting adjourned, and all the high rollers and Pat and this guy who was I'm not going to use his name, but he was the head of the public relations for CBN. He's a retired military officer. They come strolling out of the meeting, and Dee Dee leapt up like she got electric charged, and she starts running over to Pat. Now there's all these millionaires and high rollers in the immediate area, and Pat sees her. He says, "Hey, my love, how are you?" And as loud as she could, she says, "Pat, do you know what that horrible PR man did to me? Do you know what he said to me?" And Pat got this look on his face, horror, and he runs over and he grabs Dee Dee by the arm and he drags her to the side. And he comes over to us and he says, "Has Joe so-and-so lost his mind?" And I said, "Sir," I said, "we don't know what's going on." And what happened was this guy, and he must have lost his mind, he called Dee Dee up earlier that day and said, he threatened her. He said, "Don't you dare be late to this function tonight. There's a lot of money, political money, riding on this venue and this meeting, and you better be there on time and not screw things up like you always do."
Oh, wow.
Snap.
Why?
So I started laughing to Jim. I said, "Joe did about as much damage as you could get just short of dropping a grenade down your shorts."
Oh my God.
I swear to you, we got back to CBN. We walked by the second floor building, and Joe's office was cleaned out.
Wow.
Good.
Nobody
So-
fizjokes with Dee Dee.
Okay.
Gets away with
Was he
it.
faithful to Dee Dee?
Oh yeah.
Oh, good.
I used to tell people, I said, you could put a naked woman and a $20 bill on the ground in front of Pat Robertson, and he'll jump on the money every time.
Oh, he only has eyes
He's
for his
never
Dee Dee.
unfaithful.
Oh,
And his
that's
dollars.
cute.
The Dee Dee and the dollars.
Yes.
Yeah, but anyway, Dee Dee could get you fired quicker than Pat would any given day. But
Good.
She was class act. Very
That's
class act.
awesome.
She was brilliant. She had a master's in nursing.
Oh,
She
wow.
Yeah, she was a smart cookie.
Good for her.
She told me, she said, "I don't like all this politics stuff. All I want to do is tend to my garden and be a grandma."
Oh, bless her.
Yeah, so she's gone now, but
God bless her
May she
soul.
rest in peace.
They're probably together. and the afterlife.
With the Zimbabwean dictator.
Okay.
Well, David, that's all we have time for today. Please tell our listeners where they can find your books and if you're on any social media outlets.
Well, I'm working on the social media. My daughter is a very, very popular YouTuber, Super Butter Buns, and
Aw, cute.
she's gonna start helping me do some social media work.
Good.
My books can be found on Amazon if you just Google the titles, Protecting Pat Robertson, and then the other one is Trial of the Devil Incarnate.
Oof, salacious.
That's the one about Ralph Reed. That's jaw dropper. You read that book and you're going to wonder why the hell he's not in prison somewhere. But
Wow.
anyway, my personal book website is bigfatcatsbooks.com.
Awesome.
Terrific.
Appreciate the opportunity to talk to your audience and spread the truth.
Yes.
It's been fascinating.
Yes,
Thank you so much.
David.
Have a good
Thank you.
weekend.
Bye. Take
Bye-bye.
good care. Thanks.
Lord have mercy.
That's crazy. And to think I grew up with that stuff. Like Pat Robertson was the Robertson was
He
the man.
You know, it's so funny. Like those televangelists, they were all so big and hot, and now I think it's just Joel Osteen. Like,
Yeah, I know. You really don't hear about there's
No.
TD Jakes and Joel
Yeah.
Osteen. Other than that, I mean, I don't know. I think that day is like
they all had their
gone.
time, which is so interesting.
Yes, yes. Fascinating stuff.
Indeed.
So, you guys, my Bougie Bible select this week is the in-body scan, and you can find them at gyms and fitness centers, or maybe even people who do whatever, nutritionists.
Anti-aging doctors.
Anti-aging. But yeah, so if you're in the Boca Del Rey area, you can go to Lifetime Fitness or BioStation and get a scan, and it is so amazing. It just, if you love numbers and all of your markers, you just go on there. You put your hands and feet on the sensors, and it just runs a scan through your body, and it tests everything from, of course, your weight, fat, muscle, water levels, lean muscles in your arms and legs, your resting metabolic rate, and it's really gold standard accuracy. And it charts your progress from one scan to the next. I mean, it's not good to be fanatical about anything, but if you jump on it every 2 weeks, you'll be able to see if you gained muscle or if you lost it. So it's really good if you're on a fitness journey and a health journey, so that you understand your markers and what whether you're improving or you're heading in the wrong direction. So check them out at inbodyusa.com. They also have an app where you can also chart, like once you have a profile and you start to do your scans, you can chart your progress.
Indeed. I've done it. It's really interesting. So I will second that Bougie Bible nomination.
Yes, babe.
And my pick this week is called Vessel Bags, but you can find them at vesselgolf.com. They design an array of bags for golfing, pickleball, tennis, and it's highly customizable. So you can get your name embroidered on there. You can pick different colors for your leathers. You can really make it your own. So back in the day, I got Mr. Somm a golf bag. It was so cool. And sure enough, right after I got that, he stopped playing golf.
I know. He's like a pickleball king, girl.
But, if you're into racket sports, they do bags for racquetball, pickleball, tennis, obviously. Then there's travel bags, etc., all very highly customizable. If you sign up for their newsletter, you get 10% off your purchase. And it's a great gift. I've got a couple of these for some of our friends for this coming holiday season.
That is a great idea.
Vesselgolf.com.
Love it. Well, that's all we got, guys. Be sure to give the gift of crazy and share this ish with a friend.
Follow us on wherever you get podcasts to never miss an episode.
And follow us on our social channels. That's the least that you can do, okay?
Right.
Okay, give us some follows, likes, whatevers, okay? We're on IG at Crazy Rich Neighbors, on Facebook at CRM Podcast, and on TikTok at Crazy Rich Neighbors Podcast.
You can always email us. It's info@crazyrichneighbors.com. We do check that box, and we do read them. And if you're nice, we'll reply.
Yes.
If you're mean, we won't.
And remember, you guys, if you have to ask who your crazy neighbor is,
It's probably Pat Robertson.
Oh, Jesus, yes, and Reed.
Zimbabwean dictators.
Okay,
and you,
Ralph
and
Reed,
you, and you, and you, and you. Bye, Bougie Crew. Bye,
Bye,
Ben.
Ben.
Bye.
Love you
good.
guys. Bye.